And one more time, episode 279 of
The Horror Guys.
Yay!
Yay.
I mean,
Oh, you sound kind of poorly, and I kind of have a toothache. I think we should see some specialists about these things.
I think I was needing some body modifications done.
Split tongue.
Yeah.
This
Or
is,
even the evil optometrist.
yeah. This is medical week
Yes, it is.
on The Horror Guys.
It could be time to visit one of our caring health professionals, and we picked out a few that we'd be happy to prescribe. We'll start out with the hilarious Dr. Giggles from 1992 and The Dentist from 1996. Smile.
Smile.
We'll watch a short about a girl who needs a dermatologist, and then we'll do some body mods with American Mary from 2012. Finally, we'll look at the 1996 version of The Island of Dr. Moreau, a doctor you really don't want to go see.
Yeah, you really don't.
And we'll see if that one's as bad as they say it is. Yes, that is the Marlon Brando version. And in our weekly newsletter over at horrorbulletin.com, we've added a couple more. We've got the 1977 version of Island of Dr. Moreau, the one with Michael York and Burt Lancaster.
Nigel Davenport.
I wanted to see that so bad when I was little, and my parents wouldn't let me because they thought it was too scary.
Oh, I totally saw that.
Oh, you saw like The Exorcist when you were 4.
Yeah.
And another one called Guiyan, Chinese word for ghost eyes, from 1974, about a killer optometrist. Sorta.
Sorta, kinda.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's something.
I didn't care for that one at all.
I know you didn't.
Brian
He
liked
whined
it,
through the whole thing. Is this over yet?
It was something.
If you're into the Asian movies of the 70s, you know, like the kung fu types, there's not a lot of action in this one, but it looks a lot like that. The cheap, grainy footage.
It's got that same style to it.
It's kind of slow.
Well, part of the problem, too, I felt the version we were watching was at the wrong speed. Brian swears it wasn't.
I don't think it was.
I feel like it was at 1.1 speed.
Our
just a
runtime
little
matched
bit.
exactly. We watched it on YouTube when there's a link in the
that's
show
weird.
notes.
Yeah, the runtime was right, but it just seemed like it was just a little off.
It may
to
have been
me.
skipping some frames or something, but you are very sensitive to that.
I didn't like it. Yeah, didn't enjoy it.
One thing we did enjoy was the entire series of the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
There's the Blair Witch 1, Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows, the remake Blair Witch, but then there's like half a dozen extra documentaries, true crime stories, and other things that were related to it.
Yeah, some of it filled in some of the gaps and gave more information on the movies. And there was a crime that was inspired. A group of young filmmakers, saw the Blair Witch and thought, oh, we can do that too. And there was actually a criminal case because
It went badly.
the girl who was starring in the movie, she said she didn't know it was a movie.
Nobody told her she was starring in the movie.
So it was a she said, they said, and it actually went to trial. And yeah, and there's a documentary about that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, we watched all these, like, I think 9 or 10 Blair Witch movies and related movies, and a fan movie, a really well-made fan movie for Blair Witch stuff.
Yeah.
And we made a book, as we do. It is called The Blair Witch, Lore and Legends from the Film. And if you go over to OurLongPress.com, there's a link there to pick it up from Amazon.
And you know
paperback
what?
or ebook.
This weekend, it's free.
Free until Tuesday. I don't know the date on that. Probably the 6th or something.
Yeah, about then.
Yeah,
Yeah, 7th.
7th.
Tuesday's the 7th.
Get it by the 6th and you'll be sure. 7th? Maybe. Check your luck.
Yeah.
But it's free for Kindle. Actually, all our books, if you're on Kindle Unlimited, this Amazon subscription service, they're all there for free. And this is the 10th one. So we got 10 of these things up there now. They're all free the first week. And if you want to just pick them up one a week, free, just go over to OurLongPress.com. And there's a weekly notification list where you will get an email Friday morning about our free book of the week. And so far, the past 10 weeks, we haven't missed one yet.
Not yet.
We've gotten close once or twice. We got a neat one coming up next week for you that we're not going to tell you about, but it's getting to be summer season, and it seems wildly appropriate.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Again, they're not all horror books. Most of them have been so far, I think all but one.
But we're going to branch out a little more into other topics and
We are
other
definitely,
biographies.
yes,
not
other things are
horror
coming
over there.
very soon. So
yeah, it'll be a variety.
don't get hooked on the horror idea, but Hey, we're horror guys. We like
So
that topic.
we can be our own sponsor.
But pick up The Blair Witch Project for free right now at hourlongpress.com. And on with the show. Are you having a good time?
I am.
But you're not a doctor. You're just Mr. Giggles.
I could call myself Dr. Giggles.
Dr. Giggles from 1992, directed by Manny Coto. He was heavily involved with Star Trek The Next Generation, wasn't he?
I think
the name
so.
seems very familiar.
I think so.
Written by Manny Coto and Graham Whiffler. Stars Larry Drake, Holly Marie Combs, and Cliff DeYoung. Hour and 35 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. And I saw this when it came out. I think I saw this one in the theater.
Mm-hmm. I did
Okay.
too. Yeah.
Spoiler free. Larry Drake is perfect for the role and really makes this one. And they really push the dark comedy in the script, with almost all of his lines being a joke, pun, or quip. He's just a real comedian here.
He is.
Everyone else is decent enough to get the job done. It's a pretty formulaic slasher film, but it's a good one.
It is. Yeah. I
And
enjoyed
we
it
should
quite a
probably
bit.
point out right now, if you ever want to see L.A. Law, the TV series, it's on Hulu. All the episodes have been restored. Looks really good.
And Larry Drake has a big role in that.
I don't know that he ever did anything before L.A. Law, but he did a really good job playing the mentally challenged Benny in the office there. And he's just this big guy. He's huge. He's one of those gentle giant types in the show, and he's very slow. He's very nice, but in this one, he's
Not so nice.
He was going against type.
He's not nice.
Trying to get away from that image in his movie career.
Uh-huh.
And he was also the bad guy in Dark Man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And I think that may have been all he was in that I can think of. Not much else.
Bits here and there. I remember
Yeah.
an Outer Limits episode that he was in that was really good. Yeah. Other
Okay.
stuff here and there.
But he's good in this one just because he is just totally getting away from the nice guy image.
Yeah, he is.
But he's still fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what happens?
Well, we begin in the middle of an open heart surgery as Dr. Evan Rendell explains what he's doing to the audience up above in the surgical theater. He then giggles as he cuts into the patient, and we see something is not right at all.
He's using all the tools.
And the guy's laying there in a suit. Well, he then giggles as he cuts into the patient, and it turns out he's a mental patient who has just sliced up his own doctor. He then kills the nurse, giggling all the while. And not only that, he's released all the other patients. That's who his audience was up above in the theater. Well, Dr. Rendell, known as Dr. Giggles, then steals a car and leaves the secure facility.
They get some great security in that place.
Yeah. Well, school's out for summer in Moorhead, and Max tells Jen that he's gotten a job. Dr. Chamberlain examines Jen and checks out her mitral valve prolapse. He may have to operate someday, but for now she just needs to relax. Meanwhile, Dr. Giggles is back inside his old home, which is long abandoned as Jen walks past. Jen goes home and shows her new portable heart monitor to her father, Tom. Tom's new wife, Tamara, isn't Jen's favorite.
Okay, so a little backstory here, which we're going to get to eventually. But
Yeah.
Dr. Giggles' father was a lunatic. He killed a bunch of people.
He was the town doctor.
Yeah. And he was, I don't remember the details at this point. He was killed. So young Dr.
Basically,
Giggles,
they
who was
lynched
like,
him. They hauled him out and
Right,
killed
yeah.
him. Yeah.
young Dr. Giggles was like 8 or 10 years old and saw the whole thing and learned a lot. But he immediately went into a mental institution. Why would that house be sitting there for probably 35 years empty?
Good question.
Somebody would have sold that.
It sure seems like it was a big, nice house.
It was once,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it was, and it still had a lot of potential. Yeah.
It's got a heck of a basement to it, that's
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Well, it was a big old house and plus it had a full medical practice of, medical offices inside it, and just a huge place.
Yeah, something like that doesn't sit abandoned for 35 years in a residential neighborhood.
It's a movie.
It's a movie. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Details like this get to me sometimes.
Well, Giggles finds a photo and has a flashback to his own father, who was the town physician, as we mentioned. We see that young Evan had a habit of slicing up his stuffed animals and sewing them back together. Well, meanwhile, a quartet of teens comes to the Rendell house to fool around. And there's even a rhyme about the crazy former tenant.
You know you've made it when they make a rhyme about you.
Yep. Old Dr. Rendell was dragged out of the house and stoned by the locals, and they never did find his son, who is said to still inhabit the house. Yeah, the old doctor was doing, his wife was sick, Dr. Giggles' mother, and he was,
Heart transplants.
yeah,
But he
killing,
wasn't very good at
he
it.
was killing people and taking their hearts out to see if they would fit in his wife. And yeah, he kept
Need a
trying.
bigger
And
one. Need a smaller one.
yeah, yeah. Well, Trotter and Lee get locked in a closet by Stu as a joke, and they hear creepy giggling coming from outside. The doctor is in, Giggles says,
Oh, we're just getting started.
as he pulls out a foot-long hypodermic and kills them both. That night at the amusement park, Jen and Max are there to make out. He wants to get drunk, but her doctor specifically told her to avoid alcohol because of the heart trouble. Elsewhere, Mr. Henderson, no, that's Mrs. Henderson, the crazy dog lady, calls the police about seeing someone inside the old Rendell place. Dr. Giggles is there, and he talks through her murder. One medical quip after the next. Lots of medical quips in this.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, officers Magruder and Joe arrive at Rendell's house, and the sheriff explains that the old doctor killed 7 people, cutting out their hearts. His wife was sick. He was trying to get her a transplant. The conversation turns to the doctor's young son, who disappeared right after the doctor was murdered. Jen tells Max about her heart problem. Her mother died in surgery, so she's terrified of having to have surgery herself. She drops her heart monitor in the fish tank when she gets home, where we see Dr. Giggles standing on the sidewalk watching. Giggles sees Stu and his girlfriend go into the house across the street, and he follows them. He takes the girlfriend's temperature, and she gets really cold after that. It's a fatal temperature. And Stu simply gets the scalpel. Tom, Jen's dad, finds the heart monitor in the aquarium and gets concerned, but stepmom Tamara is not supportive. So he goes out looking for his daughter. Tamara stays home to have an ice cream, where the doctor lectures her about eating fat and sugar. And he's got a stomach pump all ready for her. He sucks out all the ice cream and then dials it up to 11.
Ouch.
Keeps pumping out. Yeah. Well, Dr. Giggles sees Jen's heart monitor on the table and has another flashback to his parents' situation. He takes her photo from the wall and goes looking for her at the amusement park. Meanwhile, Max makes out with some other girl from school until Jen shows up and catches him in the act. For various reasons, everyone ends up going into the funhouse, including Dr. Giggles.
Jiggles?
Jiggles, yeah. He chases Jen through the mirrors and kills one of the other girls. Max sees the doctor but can't get through to them because of the mirrors and illusions. And, well, she leaves the funhouse, runs through the woods, and the doctor soon catches her. Then she runs away, tells the police everything. Officer Joe connects Jen's heart condition with the one that killed Giggles' mother, and the other cop tells him it's just a coincidence. Officer Magruder is clearly hiding something, and Joe is persistent. So Magruder tells the story about 35 years ago. All the cops were looking for young Rendell Jr., and he was left behind to watch over the bodies. And he heard some giggling and found out how Rendell got his son out of the house by sewing him up inside the corpse of his mother.
Ew.
Yeah, and we see the kid slicing his way out, and Magruder faints. When he comes to, the kid was gone. Well, Tom returns home, gets a message from the sheriff. The doctor has also left a message. I'm standing right behind you. And Tom doesn't last long. Magruder comes in for Tom, finds him dead on the floor. Giggles stabs him in the back of the head, but Magruder does manage to shoot the maniac before he dies. Giggles goes home and operates on himself to remove the bullet and sews himself back up. Physician, heal thyself, he says. Across town, Dr. Chamberlain gives Jennifer an EKG. Max and Joe start looking up information about Dr. Rendell. They soon find out that Rendell escaped from the asylum 2 weeks ago. Jen dreams about an insane doctor who cuts her open. Giggles comes in and offers a second opinion. The two doctors fight, and there's little doubt about who's going to win. Giggles sedates Jen and then carries her home to his own basement operating room. He looks at his collection of hearts and tries to find one that's just the right size. And he's too big, too small, hey, just right. Joe comes into the rental house and sees just how messed up the occupant really is. Meanwhile, Giggles pulls out a transplant machine and gets to work on fixing Jennifer. Joe busts in, and Giggles runs off. Joe gives Jen CPR to revive her. Time to do what doctors do best, Giggles says as he grabs a golf club. Max shows up and helps Joe carry out Jen, who is reawakened. And Giggles comes in swinging, and he gets a hole-in-one on Joe's head. Should have used an 8-iron, he laments, as he looks at the mangled club. So everyone plays cat and mouse for a bit. The doctor giggles in his lab as the fire he ignites starts some oxygen tanks, blowing the whole place up. Jen and Max barely make it out. Well, later, Jen goes to the real hospital. Strain was too much, and they need to replace the valve right now. So the nurses wheel her into the operating room, and she finds several murdered doctors in the hallway. Dr. Giggles shows up, burned but not dead, as he comes in to help the surgeon, and he has brought many of his own toys with him. He chases the nurse into a storage room. No, that's Jennifer. He chases Jennifer into a storage room, and Jennifer electrocutes him. And he sounds like Daffy Duck as he fries. Because he's Dr. Giggles. Yeah. Well, he still manages to get in one more medical quip before dying. Later, we see Jen's had her surgery, and she's fine. Her father and Max have survived, too.
Well, okay, it's not really a comedy. It's a standard slasher film. But every word out of Dr. Giggles' mouth is either a bad pun or a medical joke. Every single word.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Pretty
just
much
awesome in a cringy kind of way.
Yeah. Well, at one point, he impersonates Jennifer's dad and does that straight up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, other than an outstanding performance by Drake, it's a pretty straightforward slasher film, only with a doctor character instead of a generic maniac. Definitely worthwhile if you like those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. It was.
Good for a laugh.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit less funny is 1996's The Dentist, directed by Brian Yuzna, written by Dennis Paoli, Stuart Gordon, and Charles Finch, stars Corbin Burnson, Lint Moore, LA Law Connections,
Yeah, it was.
Linda Hoffman, and Michael Stadvek, hour and 32 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. All right.
Spoiler free, this is a movie about a guy who has it all. And then he starts having a really, really bad week that just keeps getting worse and worse. So there is some dark humor in it because he is just having the worst week
One thing
ever.
after another.
Yeah, and he starts cracking. He starts getting more and more unhinged as things go along. We start out with him in an asylum, and he's talking about, this is, so it's a flashback. So we know how things are going to end up. He's going to get busted, but it's entertaining watching how things get there.
Yeah. As credits roll, we watch Dr. Alan Finestone telling his story. He had a wife, home, and a perfect life. He got a call from the IRS. Alan's business manager has made some serious mistakes. He yells at his wife about his shirts not being done perfectly. He's obsessive as he talks about decay leading to rot, filth, and corruption. Well, he returns home early and catches his wife with the pool man and snaps. He pulls out his gun and does what dentists do. Fantasizes about killing the pool man.
But he
Not gonna
doesn't
hurt
actually do
anybody.
it
No,
at this point.
can't
No,
do it.
No.
At the office, everyone is annoyed that the doctor is late, and they all make excuses for him. But meanwhile, Alan follows the pool man to the house of a friend of his wife, where the guy has sex with that woman too. And he ends up shooting the woman's dog in self-defense, but it rattles him badly. Alan then goes back to the office and starts working on patients. He gets a little boy who's never been to the dentist. He's got this whole tropical-themed room. He's got this very elaborate doctor's office.
Yeah, he does. Very cool rooms.
Well, Alan says he's not going to look in the boy's mouth. Instead, he starts babbling about kicking his wife out and imagines the boy having really rotten teeth. He jabs the kid pretty badly, and his mother carries him out bleeding.
Could have gone better.
Personal life bleeding into work life.
Yeah, it is.
The police investigate that dead dog, and Detective Gibbs works out what he thinks happened. There's been robberies in the neighborhood, and this is probably related. Well, the nurses see that Alan is having an off day, and they start keeping the patients away from him. He forces his way in to see April Rain, the beauty queen, who wants gas rather than an injection. Out in the waiting room, Steve Landers, a talent scout, hits on Sarah, another patient. He brought in April and is wondering why it's all taking so long. Alan, in the meantime, is imagining his wife in the chair, and he starts kissing her and tearing her clothes off. "Oh yeah, just like Matt," she says.
And she's half gassed up.
Yeah.
So she's out of it.
Well, she wakes up half undressed and storms out to Steve. "They're dropping like flies," says Nurse Jessica. What?
Nurse Jessica.
Nurse Jessica to Nurse Karen. Yeah, the nurses see that something is way off today.
Yep, this isn't normal.
Well, Mr. Goldblum from the IRS arrives, and he wants some free dental work. Steve comes back inside and punches Alan in the nose in front of everyone. Alan tells the nurses to send everyone home, but Sarah doesn't have a ride home, and she really wants her braces off. Well, the wife Brooke comes to the office before dinner, and he's done a room up as an opera house. "Just how many pills did you take?" she asks.
And that's an awesome dentistry.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
He gets her into the chair and then strangles her just a little before turning the gas on. He then proceeds to pull out all her teeth. The next morning, the detectives comes to Alan's door to ask about the local robberies, but they go away easily enough. Matt, the pool guy, finds Brooke's tongue on the ground, and then he finds Brooke, who doesn't look so good anymore.
No, all toothless and tied up.
Alan cuts the pool guy's throat. Well, the wife's friend comes in to get her filling fixed, and she's still trying to figure out what happened to her dog. She rants about how good Matt, the new pool guy, is, which sets off Alan once again. Alan finds that his problems from yesterday are all coming back to haunt him, starting with that IRS man. Nurse Jessica confronts Alan about his issues and threatens to shut him down, so he strangles her.
Bad move.
The police, who found the bullet that killed the dog, trace it back to Alan from the kind of gun registered to him. The IRS guy wants a large bribe to leave Alan alone.
Bad move this week.
He's a real sleaze, and Alan calls for full sedation.
Uh-huh.
The decay is out of control. It's gone right to your soul. Open wide. Well, the police go to Alan's house and find blood and Matt's body in the backyard. Nurse Karen realizes that Alan didn't simply fire Jessica. She also finds what's left of the IRS man, but Alan kills her. The detective finds Brooke still alive. Sarah finally gets called to a room for her appointment to have her braces removed. The police are on the way, but Alan removes Sarah's braces and her teeth look just great. Alan, on the other hand, only sees decay in there. "The rest of your life can only spoil what we made." He pulls out his gun, but Sarah bites him and runs out of the office. The main door is locked, so she can't get out. Alan corners Sarah in the opera room and pulls his gun again. She promises to brush 3 times a day and to never eat candy. The police come in and find Sarah crying, but Alan has vanished. Elsewhere, long time later, at dental school, Alan arrives to teach his students. Oh, no, this isn't later. It's the same day.
It's the same day.
So,
Yeah.
He's a busy doctor.
Yeah, they put together where he has gone. Yeah.
He instructs all of his students to extract all of the patient's teeth. Then he pulls a gun to make sure that they do it. The police storm in, and after a brief chase, they catch Alan. Later, we cut to Alan telling his story. He's in a padded cell at the mental hospital. They force him to have a dental checkup, and he doesn't like it.
No, not at all.
Well, Alan starts off pretty high-strung, but he's not a murderer to start with. He's just had a really bad day. He's not your typical stalker. He's clean, careful, and completely insane by the end of the movie. It's not a comedy, but there are lots of laughs along the way because, dentists are just funny.
Naturally funny, of course. Yeah.
Okay, the smiling doctors. Short film. Did we see a short film?
Are you feeling itchy?
Ooh.
Yeah, this is a movie. Yeah, Dead Skin from 2023, which was written and directed by Chiara O'Rourke, stars Elizabeth Candy Jubb, Michael Short, Isabella Percival, thank you, and Ruth Allison. The runtime is 10 minutes and 6 seconds, and you can watch it for free on YouTube.
That's the best way to watch things.
Yeah, so many good shorts on YouTube for free.
Yeah. What happens?
Well, Jess gets up for her morning and finds she's got a big red splotch on her shoulder that itches. Her mother wants her to go shopping for a prom dress, but Jess is kind of obsessed with her rash. At school, all the girls talk about what they're planning to wear. Jess is kind of dreading the whole thing, and she can't stop scratching, and that rash just keeps getting worse. So what do you do when the medication doesn't work fast enough? Jess has an idea.
You go see Dr. Giggles and take care of the dentist, right?
No, not quite.
Well, there's acne, and then there's this. The makeup here is quite good, very realistic and horrifying in a real-life kind of way.
Yeah, that was realistic.
The cinematography and pacing of the story is good. It moves kind of slowly, but it doesn't feel slow. I mean, it is only 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The final result wasn't exactly a surprise, but it was well done overall. And we thought it was really good.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, the makeup, it's very realistic looking.
Uh-huh.
All right, you want to get some body modifications done?
By American Mary.
Yeah, American Mary 2012.
Which is ironically named because they're all Canadian. It's a Canadian.
Everybody in the movie's a Canadian, yes.
Canadian production. Yeah.
Written and directed by Jen Soska and Sylvia Soska. Stars Catherine Isabel, Antonio Cupo, Tristan Risk. Hour and 32 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. Spoiler free what happens.
Well, this was really good with excellent special effects that were all practical effects. The directors and cast did a great job. Story isn't just a killing people slasher movie, and that's kind of what I was expecting going into it. I didn't know anything about it. There's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more depth, and we would recommend it for sure.
I'm going to easily say this is my favorite of the week.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'd probably go there.
I mean, the first two were fun, but this was just good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
far better than the other two. And Moreau was good, but yeah, this is winner of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we open on some surgery. Nope. Mary is just cutting up and practicing stitching a turkey back together in the kitchen. Is that a thing, you think, for real?
I bet it is. I mean, it would make perfect sense. Yeah.
Well, she's a medical student, and she seems to know what she's doing. She's behind on her bills and looking for a job, and she applies for a job doing dancing in a gentleman's club. Well, she goes to the club to be interviewed by Billy, the manager. He's actually surprised that she brought a resume. Most of these strippers don't do resumes.
No.
She does at least come dressed for the job. Lance comes in and says Billy has a big problem. Billy checks it out, comes back to the interview, and offers Mary $5,000 to do a special favor for him.
Dang.
I never had an interview like that.
No, me neither.
Turns out there's a guy in the back room who's bleeding profusely and is missing an eye. She fixes up the guy, takes her money, and goes home. She's upset by the whole situation, but $5,000 can be pretty calming.
Mm-hmm.
In the morning, she gets a call for Dr. Mason by someone named Beatrice, and she hangs up. Then her boss at the restaurant calls, and they've been shut down. She's completely out of a job now.
What can she do for money?
Well, this Beatrice person comes to her apartment. Mary's address was on that resume she handed in. She's had lots of plastic surgery done, and she's offering $10,000 for Mary to work on her friend.
And Beatrice has fancied herself to look like Betty Boop.
Oh, yes.
And, if you close your eyes and squint, kinda. But she looks like somebody who has had way too much plastic surgery. And it's a kind of a macabre look, but vaguely Betty Boopish.
Get used to it.
And she practices doing a high, squeaky voice like Betty Boop.
Well, Mary's not really a doctor, and she doesn't accept insurance, but she does need the money. Her classroom teacher, Dr. Grant, calls. She's missed class again. For $10,000, I could skip a class or two.
Yeah, I think so.
Mary goes over to a veterinary clinic to see Beatrice's friend, the patient. She's Ruby Real Girl, who wants to look like a doll. She wants all her external sexy bits removed. Well, Mary cuts off Ruby's nipples and closes off her vagina. Just from a technical point of view.
As much as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. You'd still have to have an opening to pee out of, but she pretty much removes everything else.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Mary then gives recovery instructions to Beatrice and tells her to never tell anyone that this happened. Her teacher, Dr. Walsh, The other doctor says she's good with patients and she's going to be great once she starts cutting into people. So there's a good doctor and a bad doctor.
Well, she's already
teacher.
gotten some practice.
Beatrice brings Mary a thank you gift from Ruby. Ruby posts photos of the work on her website, and it all looks really well done. There's a link there to a body modification website, and Mary is intrigued. People pay for that?
A lot.
Dr. Walsh invites Mary to go out for drinks with the other surgeons. It's at a private apartment, not a bar. She meets Dr. Black, who seems weird. This guy is in this one scene, and he is very weird.
And he's so off. Yeah, he did a nice job with that, but they didn't go anywhere else with that.
Yeah, he just sort of disappears.
Yeah.
Dr. Grant is also there, and he's still hard on her. Oh.
Well, there is a double meaning there.
There is now, yes.
There is. Well, you can clearly see at the party that,
You know something's going to happen.
yeah, something's wrong here.
They're all creepy, and sure enough, someone has drugged her. Grant takes her in the back room and videos himself raping her. In the morning, she goes home, knowing exactly what happened. Well, she then offers Billy $5,000 to do something for her. Next, we see her paying Billy, who has kidnapped and brought Dr. Grant to her. She explains to him that she dropped out of medical school, but she didn't go into prostitution the way he was expecting. She numbs his jaw and then says that she's going to learn all about body modification surgery by trying them all on him. Oh my, it's a revenge movie.
And practice.
She starts with splitting his tongue, but she doesn't stop there. Later, she does the tongue splitting and other modifications for willing patients, and she's really good at it. She's had practice. She's got a whole business going with Billy and Lance. Detective Dollar comes to Mary to talk about Dr. Grant's disappearance.
Don't know nothing. No.
At Billy's strip club, Mary does the whole act on stage for him, and he likes it. Nope, he's just fantasizing. She doesn't do that. She tells Billy about Dr. Walsh, but she's not really ready to do anything about him yet. He was the good doctor. He was clearly involved, but how much?
Yeah.
Well, Beatrice takes Mary out for coffee, and they go to Ruby's house. There's a job offer there from the biggest body modification place in the country. Two twins come to the club to see Mary.
And they're actually the writers-directors.
Yeah, the two sisters that made the movie.
Uh-huh.
They run the Body Mod website. They've been calling her Bloody Mary with her work. They have some work they want done, but it's a big job, and she's going to need help. Billy knows a guy, Dr. Janus, which is the director's father. It's a wild surgery, transplanting arms between the sisters, and then some additional enhancements. I don't think the Body Mod people generally go that far.
Did she make them conjoined twins? I wasn't clear on that. I think the implication might
Now,
have
at
been
their meeting, they said something about I give my right arm, I give my left arm. I think that they were just trading.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
We never
get a good
saw
look at
them again.
after.
They were laying on recovery beds that looked like side by side, which made me wonder if they were, if she had conjoined them. But it's never made completely clear. You do see an arm being removed for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kept a little bit vague.
It's possible.
Yeah.
If you know for sure, send us an email.
Yeah.
Email@horrorguys.com. I would like to know.
Uh-huh.
Well, we then see Billy beating up some guy we don't see. Mary goes to see Dr. Grant, who turns out isn't really dead after all, but by now he's got no arms, legs, or tongue, and he hangs up by hooks. That looks painful. She takes photos of him for her website. Bad timing, because a security guard comes in and knocks Mary down. So she hacks him to death rather severely. She then calls Lance to help clean up the body, and he tells her stories about killing people. Don't ever devalue what you do, Mary.
It's an important service.
He's a very supportive murderer.
Yeah, he is.
The twins pay a lot for their successful surgery. Mary continues setting up her website at a new place. She's got this whole surgery room that she can seal off. It's sort of hidden. The detective comes over and mentions that Dr. Walsh has gone missing too. He knows about them having sex parties where the girls got drugged, taped, and raped. We cut to Billy, who's watching Mary's tape. He killed Walsh and took the tape without Mary's knowledge. Billy's got a little infatuation going on there.
Getting some revenge for Mary. Yeah.
Mary gets a call that her grandmother has died. And this doesn't really go too much either. You'd think this would be a big turning point or something, but it doesn't really go anywhere.
No, it's just in there. Yeah. Which I think that made it more interesting because it's almost like there were little hints of red herrings here and there sprinkled around
Yeah, things that
weren't,
could have gone places
but
and
they
didn't.
weren't really the main part of the story at all. Yeah.
Mary confronts Billy about Walsh, and he denies finding her tape. She goes into the restroom of the club, and the girls who work there are afraid of her. She gets all her equipment unpacked to attack one of the dancers until she notices a video camera in the restroom. We then see that Billy is totally infatuated with his videos of Mary. She seduces and then stabs Billy. Nope, he's fantasizing again. He wants that to happen. The real Mary asks if Billy thinks she's crazy. He asks her to leave town and go to L.A. with him. He says Beatrice has quit. She just stopped showing up. Beatrice calls later. Ruby Real Girl's husband beat her up and demanded to know who did the work on his wife. Turning out sewing up all her sexy bits did not do much for her husband.
Yeah, he wasn't on board with that. Yeah.
Suddenly, Ruby's husband attacks Mary from behind, stabbing her. She drags herself into her operating room, losing a lot of blood. She grabs a few surgical instruments and gets to work sewing herself up. But she's no Larry Drake.
Not fast enough.
Detective Dollar shows up about the attack and finds the dead man there. Mary has left plenty of evidence concerning Dr. Grant. Turns out Mary herself is there on the floor, also dead. She wasn't fast enough to save herself. I figured she was going to be, left town or something.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting. He'd just find all the evidence and her missing. Yeah.
Well, okay, that's the end of the movie. The weird twins are Jen and Sylvia Soska, the writer and directors of the film. Their parents also played roles in the film. It's really good. Lots of gore and weirdness and almost no CGI at all.
No, all the practical effects.
Yeah. The whole body modification thing was fairly unknown, but it's really taken off in the past decade. Oh, I don't know. I think they had it in 2012, just not to the extent they have it now.
Well, they've had it way back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more popular now.
At the time, we were a little confused about the legality of all the body modification stuff. Is this the kind of surgery that requires a real licensed doctor, or is it more like getting a tattoo?
Well, I looked it up.
I think it depends on how far you go.
It depends on how far you go. It really varies a lot from state to state. The main thing that's heavily regulated federally is anesthesia. So any of these surgeries and body mods and brandings and really painful things can't be done legally with anesthesia without being licensed. So
Okay.
you either have to endure the pain, or they have to do it illegally with anesthesia. That gets a lot of them that try to do it anyway with illegal anesthesia. But there's all it varies from place to place and state to state, and and that's the United States. Other countries have different rules on it. You can go internationally and have these things done.
Okay.
So it just varies.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was really good. We both liked it.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
my vote for best of the week.
Yeah.
I had not seen this before.
Liked it a lot.
Which takes us to 1996's The Island of Dr. Moreau. We have reviewed at some point 1932's The Island of Lost Souls. That is on the website somewhere. Go search for that. That was the first version of Dr. Moreau. And it had Bela Lugosi as the sayer of the law. I forget who Dr. Moreau was. Charles Lawton, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, it was
I
okay.
mean, it was black and
Yeah,
white.
Black and white. But
Violence was somewhat limited, obviously, but it was well done. Then there's the 1977 Burt Lancaster version, which is in our newsletter this week, Horror Bulletin. And it was good.
it was good. Makeup is good. Effects were good.
And then they made this one.
Yeah, 1996. And this one has all kinds of backstory issues where
yeah.
the director was replaced, and Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer were both weird and hated each other sometimes, and wouldn't, some days they
wouldn't come out
couldn't
of their
shoot because
trailers.
neither would come out of their trailers. And yeah, I guess there was a lot of chaos during the filming, but they
This
got
is
it done.
This is on many, many, many lists of worst films of all time.
And I don't think it was that bad. I was entertained with it.
It was weird.
Yeah, I think that adds.
I think the weird performances overshadowed it, and a lot of people just didn't follow the story too well or something. Like, why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? What is wrong with these people?
because they're weird. Yeah,
But the main stuff with the creatures and the story, it's there.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as people tend to make it seem like.
yeah, I enjoy it. Yeah.
Directed by John Frankenheimer and Richard Stanley. One got fired, one took over to try to save the project.
Yeah.
Written by H.G. Wells, Richard Stanley, and Ron Hutchinson. Stars David Thewlis, Marlon Brando, and Val Kilmer. And David Thewlis was like their fourth choice. Who was the main guy? Who was he going to be originally?
Oh, I don't remember now.
Oh,
It doesn't matter.
I know Val Kilmer took over for James Woods.
Val Kilmer was going to be in the role. Yeah, and James Woods was going to be Montgomery, but then Val Kilmer switched, and he took over Montgomery.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, there was a lot of stuff went on behind the scenes with this.
Bruce Willis was
Oh,
in
yeah,
the,
he was
in the
one of the
running
choices.
for it. Yeah.
That would have been weird.
Yeah, it would have been.
Hour and 36 minutes, trailer in the show notes. All right, so spoiler free, Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando, not Brandon, seem to be trying to outdo each other to see who could be the strangest with their roles. Oh, yeah, they did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to say if they're entertaining or too overshadowing, but there's something to see.
Yeah.
The rest of the movie is a passable action thriller, and the practical makeup effects are amazing. The monsters in this are really outstanding.
Yes, they are.
It's one worth checking out that still holds up, well,
Pretty well.
Your mileage may differ.
Well, because it's practical effects, the effects are really solid still. And, you'll enjoy it or you won't, basically. Well, spoilery synopsis. We open on a tiny lifeboat in the Java Sea. Edward Douglas narrates that their plane crashed, and he's there with two other guys who fought each other and fell overboard, and a shark ate them both. So he's alone now. He gets delirious from exposure and dreams of being picked up by a ship. It's not a dream. A man named Montgomery nurses Douglas back to health. Montgomery says he's a veterinarian. Well, they stop at an island to let Montgomery off. Douglas is expected to travel on with another ship at a later destination. Montgomery says I need to come to the island for his own safety, and he's persuasive about it. The island is owned by Dr. Moreau, a scientist. Well, as he waits at the big house, Douglas is impressed by the Nobel Prize hanging on Moreau's wall, and then he sees a girl dancing outside, and he's far more impressed with her. She's Aissa, who has never been off the island, and refers to Moreau as father. Montgomery says Monroe became obsessed with his animal research, and animal rights activists ran him out of the United States. So he's been on this island for 17 years, and Montgomery has been helping him for about 10 years. Well, Douglas hears strange noises in the night, goes to investigate. He finds a whole operating theater inside a zoo full of exotic animals. Douglas watches as surgeons operate on a creature giving birth, but one of the surgeons isn't human. He runs back outside, and Aissa offers to help him. The two of them are chased through the forest by animal men in formal wear. And they're soon surrounded by different groups of animal men. The first one talks. His name is Assassamon, who takes them to the
Sounds like a
Sayer of the Law.
Pokemon, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
This
does.
is the Assassamon.
Assassamon, and he seems to be slothy. I think he was a sloth.
Okay.
That was my take, yeah. It's kind of fun seeing these animal men and trying to figure out what animal they started out as. Some you can tell clearly, and some are like, what are they? Or what were they? Well, he takes them to the Sayer of the Law. They go to a whole compound inhabited by men who look like half animals, hybrids. The Sayer of the Law talks about how they all want to do animal things, but now they are men, and they need to behave like it. The Sayer touches Douglas. He's blind.
He is blind, isn't he? He certainly acted like it walking around being led around, but you couldn't tell for sure.
The Sayer of the Law?
Yeah,
the
okay.
character was. I don't know if the actor really
No,
was.
it's Ron Perlman. He's not blind.
Oh, it was? Okay, yeah, he was blind. Well, suddenly a horn sounds. The father, he comes! And they all rejoice and running around. And Moreau makes an entrance. And boy, does he ever. I mean, he's sitting on top of a vehicle. And it's like this, he's covered in white paint and a veil and white robes. And, he's like
God
this,
has arrived.
Yeah, like this God figure, yeah. Next to him is a tiny sidekick who is dressed identically. He's Magi. He orders Montgomery to hand over his gun to Douglas. Moreau has a device that he wears that sends the animal men into pain convulsions if they get too far out of line. Well, they all return to the big house, where Moreau's children introduce themselves. There's some of them that are house servants. Ayissa is the only one who really looks completely human. Moreau explains that all the people that Douglas have met are animals that have been given human attributes through his experiments, and Douglas is not really on board with Moreau's justifications. Moreau and his Mini-Me, the original, play a hilarious piano duet on a full-sized piano and a teeny piano.
Where do you get a piano that size?
Dinner entertainment, yeah. At dinner, the doctor and his guests debate Satan and morality. He's trying to create a perfectly altruistic creature who is better than humans. And when Moreau has the cook make a rabbit, Moreau gets all horrified and offended. He doesn't eat meat, neither do any of the animal men anymore. Strict vegetarianism. Montgomery is messing with him. Well, he orders the rabbit disposed of, and everybody who handled it has to wash their hands. Ayissa mentions that they saw a dead rabbit in the woods, and Moreau asks which of the creatures did it. Tomorrow there will be a trial.
You are not allowed to eat meat.
Thou shalt not eat meat. Are we not men? Douglas sneaks out to the boat that night, thinking he's going to get away. And, that was a cool scene. The boat is guarded. They're still rat-sized, but they're vaguely humanoid rats.
Little humanoid rats.
Oh, they're just awful, yeah. They chase him off, yeah. Well, in the morning, the sayer of the law, Moreau, and Montgomery put on a trial for Lomai, the animal who killed the rabbit. Lomai charges Moreau, but is shocked by his implant. House dog butler Azazello kills Lomai, which is an even bigger crime. But he says Montgomery gave him the gun.
Montgomery likes to stir the pot.
Yeah, he is, yeah. Well, the many animal men are confused when Azazello isn't punished. The hyena man especially takes it hard. He was good pals with Lomai. And after inspecting the cremated body, he puts it together that there's a pain-giving implant that is connected to their ribs.
He's looking at the burned up bones and sees this thing attached to them.
And he can feel his own under the skin. So he digs in with claws and breaks it off and pulls it out.
Ow.
Yeah, it looks painful. Well, next day or later, Montgomery is given all the animals a drug that keeps them from regressing. Hyena Man doesn't want his shot. Hyena Man shows Montgomery his pain giver device, and Montgomery tries to shoot him and sends Azazello and his dog friends after him when he misses. That night, Hyena Man demonstrates removing the pain device to some other buddies. Ayissa complains to Moreau that her teeth and ears are growing, but he brushes off that as just a chemical imbalance that he can correct.
We are never in doubt that she's not really human.
Yeah, she's a cat. Yeah. Hyena Man and his new gang break into the house and run into Moreau, who's dressed for bed, and he doesn't have his pain-giving controller device with him. But he offers them cookies and talks to them, tries to calm them down. They're kind of terrified of him, but he's also clearly nervous as he starts playing the piano for them. And as he plays and stalls them, his little mini-me, Majai, sneaks into the room to hand Moreau his electronic device. Hyena Man wants to know, what are we? And he asks, if there is no pain, is there no law? Well, Moreau says there will always be law as he pushes the buttons, and his smugness quickly vanishes when he realizes they've pulled out their pain devices.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. They attack Moreau and kill him dead. Leaves Montgomery in charge.
Now, everybody knows Marlon Brando's the big star of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like in this for 32 minutes.
Not a lot, yeah.
No, he shows up late
He
and he
makes the
dies
most of it.
quickly.
Yeah. Oh, and there's one scene, too, where he's sitting, it's a tropical island, of course, and Moreau's a big guy and, sweating up a storm at home. And, he's talking to Ayissa, and he's got what looks like a bucket on his head. that he's wearing. And it's an ice bucket.
She pours ice into the top of his
Yeah,
hat.
refill my hat, will you, darling? And of course, that's what he's using to keep. Yeah, just lots of little weird touches. Well, Douglas consoles Ayesa, who says she is far better than the others. She admits that she's changing back and needs the formula that only Montgomery can give her. Well, meanwhile, Azazello steals the sleeping Montgomery's gun. Montgomery kind of cracks up. He's doing an impressive Brando impersonation, but he's not fooling anyone. He also claims to have destroyed all the serum. Azazello takes Hyena Man and his friends to the armory for more guns. They blow up the boat and the whole dock. None shall escape. Montgomery seems to be taking his Brando impersonation a bit overboard, but most of the animals don't seem to notice or care about the difference. He's God now. Plus, he's handing out drugs to them like they're candy, which helps. Meanwhile, Douglas searches the lab for serum, finds a bunch of sample jars with his name on them. Azazello shoots Montgomery, and he totally had it coming. Ayesa and Douglas lament over the lack of the needed serum. He figures that Moreau was going to use Douglas's DNA and was planning on stopping her regression permanently.
This makes no sense, but just go with it.
He had an idea, but he's dead. Montgomery's dead. The lab is smashed. There's no hope for recreating it. Nothing can be done now. The Hyena Man's crew storm the compound, and that goes poorly for some of the hybrids when they release the wild animals who attack. Azazello shows up and his goons attack Douglas and Ayesa, and she ends up dead. Hyena Man insists that the sayer of the law proclaim him to be the new law. Hyena Man confronts Douglas, the last normal human, and uses Moreau's pain device to make all the other animal men fall down in pain. Douglas tricks Hyena Man into killing his own accomplices out of jealousy, and there's a major shootout while the whole compound explodes. The other animals gang up on Hyena Man and kill him. In the morning, Douglas builds a raft to leave. Asisaman wants him to stay with them, and Douglas promises to return, but the sayer of the law says no. Him and Majai are still there, and he says don't come back. They just want to go back to being animals again. So Douglas gets on his raft and leaves. The end.
Well, okay then.
Yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we saw this when it came out, and this viewing was better and a lot shorter than I remember it being. We got this going, and I was expecting it to be like a 3-hour mess.
No, it was
like an hour and a half-ish.
Hour and a half.
It was fine, yeah.
No, but it was entertaining. I liked it.
Well, this version takes place in the modern day of 1996. Marlon Brando is the big draw here, and he doesn't even show up until 29 minutes in and dies 35 minutes later. He's weird, and according to all accounts, none of his weirdness was in the script. He is so over-the-top ridiculous that it overshadows the rest of the film. It's a lot like Brando and Val Kilmer were trying to out-weird one another.
Mm-hmm.
And Val Kilmer ended up really hurting his career because of this. Nobody wanted to work with him after this. And he didn't work for like 30 years.
And there was some weirdness between Brando and one of the house servants. I think he might have been like a Pomeranian dog, but the house servants were basically dogs that were humanized. Uh-huh. There was some weirdness between him and one of the actors, and Marlon Brando. He was, trying to communicate with him in German and would only speak with the guy in German, which
the guy didn't speak German.
Yeah, and was confusing the guy, and so they clashed so badly that he couldn't be the mini-me, the sidekick. So then Brando latched onto this little guy and said, "You will be my sidekick," and that's where that went from there, I guess.
There's no end to the stories with this film. There have been documentaries made about what went wrong with this film.
If you dig into it, there's some real weirdness there. Yeah.
Well, anyway, if you could manage to put aside their weird performances, the rest of the film is actually pretty good. The makeup and creature effects in this are just outstanding. Should have won some awards.
Mm-hmm.
Hyena Man and Azazello are particularly stand out. They are really good. Azazello is Temuera Morrison, the guy who plays Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is long before Star Wars.
And you barely recognize him.
How this managed to avoid the Academy Award that year for for effects is surprising. Probably because the film was maligned for so many other reasons.
Uh-huh.
But still, it did look really good.
Yeah, it did.
We do not regret watching it.
No.
All right, so that's all we're going to talk about this time. But if you want to know about the 1977 version, The Middle Child of The Island of Dr. Moreau, that is over at horrorbulletin.com. And you can also read about Ghost Eyes from 1974, about the evil killer optometrist witch vampire ghost.
It's like they couldn't decide what he was, so they made him all of them.
Yeah, it was something. It started out to be like a hypnotic rapist. But then, no, wait, he's a ghost. No, wait, he's a vampire. No, wait, well, come on.
What is he? Yeah. And then there was some Living Dead thrown in. And just,
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah, it is.
And that one's available on YouTube, but there's a link over at the Horror Bulletin where you can link over to YouTube and watch it. I think it was like almost 2 hours. It was fairly long.
Mm-hmm. Too long.
Yeah, you thought so, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. It wasn't as bad as you wanted to make it be.
Okay. All right.
Well, that is it for this week. Stop in over at horrorbulletin.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter where you get all our reviews in your mailbox. Stop in over at horrorguysbooks.com where you can pick up some of our many, many books. The other book site, we got to do something with these many book sites.
Mm-hmm.
Ourlongpress.com to get the free book of the week, where this week's free book is Blair Witch Project, Lore and Legends from the Films. And that's all for this week. I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
We'll see you
next week.
Yeah.
Yay!
See ya.
See ya.